Here's question 2 on last year's final exam, short answer questions. All right, so you're given this diagram that shows demand, marginal revenue, and marginal cost. So these are all straight lines, which means that we can, draw triangles and calculate the area of triangles and rectangles. We're told that this is a monopolistic market. So this is a graph for a monopoly. And the price is in dollars, and the quantity is the number of waffles sold in Hawkins. Okay. So first of all, basically what we're doing here is comparing a single price monopolist to a price discriminating monopolist. So a single price monopolist means that we do have to pay attention to this marginal revenue curve. The firm does not price discriminate. That means if they want to sell more, they have to lower the price for everybody. So there's only one price that's being charged. All right. So this is the normal monopoly situation. So in order to maximize profits, then the firm will produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost and then go up to the demand curve to set the price. All right. So where does marginal revenue equal marginal cost? Right here at a quantity of 150. And then the firm goes up to the demand curve to set the price. So the price would be $3.50 per waffle. Okay. Then you're asked to calculate consumer surplus, producer surplus, and the deadweight loss from monopoly. So the consumer surplus would be this area, right? The area under the demand curve and above the market price. So that is a triangle. So that means it's 1/2 times base. So the base here is 150 times height. The height here goes from 5 to 350. Right? So I'll actually write that out. 5 to 350. So 1/2 times 150 times $1.50 gives us a consumer surplus of $112.50. The producer surplus, let me change my highlighter. The producer surplus is the area under the market price and above the marginal cost curve. When we first defined producer surplus way back, it was the area under the market price and above the supply curve. Now the monopolist doesn't have a supply curve, so we'll just use the marginal cost curve. Okay, so it's this area. All right, I'm sorry, that's a little messy. Let me maybe try that again. So you see that it's not an easily figured out area. So we have to divide this into, all right, I'm just gonna erase. We have to divide this into a rectangle, which is here, and then a triangle that's below it, okay? And then those we can calculate. All right, so the rectangle, there's no 1/2, it's just base times height. So that's base of 150 times the height there goes from 350 to $2. All right, 350 to 2. And then the little triangle that's below it, the base again is 150. And in this case, the height goes from $2 to 125, so that's 75 cents. Okay, so then we add these two areas together and we get $281.25. All right, so that is a little bit complicated. Now the deadweight loss, as you know, is shown by the transactions that do not take place because the monopolist, even though, okay, from society's point of view, we want all of these transactions here in between 150 and 250. So 100 waffles here. We want those to be sold because the value of the good to consumers, which is shown on the demand curve here, is greater than the value of the resources used to produce them, that's shown on the marginal cost curve. So those are units that should be produced. Those are transactions that should occur. All right, so there's a deadweight loss because the monopolist, as a profit maximizer, will not want to produce those units because if they did, they'd have to lower the price to everyone, and then the marginal revenue curve would be below the marginal cost curve, so the firm's profit would fall. All right, so the firm is doing what it's supposed to do. It's maximizing its profit. But from society's point of view, it's not producing the right amount. We're not utilizing our resources correctly as a society. All right, so the area of that deadweight loss then, again, is 1/2 times base times height. The base here is 100 waffles, so 250 minus 150. And then the height is between $3.50 and $2, right? The height of this triangle. So $3.50 minus $2. So that's a deadweight loss of $75. Okay. Now suppose the monopolist is able to perfectly price discriminate. So how much will they produce and what will be the price? Okay, if they can perfectly price discriminate, so I'm going to erase all of this. If they can perfectly price discriminate, then that means they're charging a different price to everyone, which means we no longer pay any attention to this marginal revenue curve because the firm can now just use the demand curve as the marginal revenue curve. All they have to do is just ask the question, can we charge a higher price than the marginal cost? And if so, then we'll go ahead and sell that unit, because the idea of perfect price discrimination is that the firm does not have to lower the price in order to sell more. They don't have to lower the price to everyone in order to sell more. They only have to lower the price to the next person in order to sell more. Okay, so all the firm needs to do, erase this again, is compare the price shown on the demand curve to the marginal cost shown on the marginal cost curve. If demand, or the price shown on the demand curve, is greater than marginal cost, the firm will go ahead and produce and sell that unit. Because, of course, they're not dropping the price on the previous units. Everyone is paying a different price according to their highest willingness to pay. So that means the firm will go all the way to where demand and marginal cost intersect. For that, in terms of output, we get exactly the same outcome as in perfect competition. Okay, so the monopolist then will produce 250 waffles a day. Now we can't say what's the price for everybody because everybody is being charged their own highest willingness to pay. So everybody's paying a different price. But we can say what's the price of the last waffle sold. That 250th waffle is being sold for a price of $2.50 because that's where demand and marginal cost intersect. Okay, the other waffles are being sold for $3 or $3.50 or $4 or $4.50 or $4.99. There's somebody out there who's willing to pay $4.99 for a waffle. Okay, so now calculate consumer surplus, producer surplus, and the deadweight loss, assuming this perfect price discrimination. So first of all, consumer surplus is 0. There is no calculation to be made there because everybody is paying their highest willingness to pay. So there's no gap in between the demand curve and the price that they pay. The demand curve tells us how much they're going to pay. All right, so there's no consumer surplus with perfect price discrimination. Similarly, there's no deadweight loss because we achieve the competitive outcome of 250 waffles being sold. All right, so those two are easy. Producer surplus would be the whole area underneath the price because everybody's paying a different price. So the demand curve is showing us the price. The difference between the price and the marginal cost, right? This whole area is now the producer surplus. So that's going to be 1/2 times the base of 250 times the height of $5 minus 125, right, or 375. So that ends up being 468.75. All right, that is question 2.